Episode 40, I Go Nuclear. The iCarly crew have to make a project each in which they make something, quote, environmentally friendly. Ironically, this episode's quality is like Carly's old project, a dumpster fire. Yep, 5432 bad episode. There's so many things in this episode that are just annoying and stupid. Kind of like me now I think about it. First of all, like me and teachers' laughing problem, this is relatively a small thing that gets worse within hindsight, but I find it rather lazy that Dan uses the same location when characters are walking outside. What I mean is that when Carly is riding her scooter, she goes down the sidewalk, and apparently it's like the sidewalk in the neighborhood nearby Nick Studios, and it works here, but they use it again 2 seasons from now, and they use it again in Victorious, and it's not a huge deal. I won't dock points for this episode, but what I will dock points for is how just stupid Carly is in the second half. So this one dude, Cal, helps Carly with her project, and this entire scenario blew over my head when I was a kid, and logically I find this whole thing dumb now. Just because something can power fans and lights and such doesn't mean it's environmentally friendly or whatever. Another thing, Freddy having his tech equipment was already stretching it in complete anus pull in iPilot, but him having this compost worm home thingy that comes out of the Matrix or something, I get that he's smart, but more straight A smart, not like fly a plane smart. I can get all past that, and maybe I'm thinking of it a little too less, or maybe too much. However, what really ruins this episode for me is the comedy. First of all, she isn't as bad to say, I mean Fred, or even I will date Freddy, but Sam is kind of annoying this episode. The gag where she takes Gibby's underwear is a little funny, I'll admit, and honestly, the teacher makes the scene worse, but the scene where she presents her project by jamming her thumb into an orange and drinking out of it is just, I don't know, I don't really find it funny, but I just find it incredibly stupid. Even Freddy realizes how terrible it is, but it's all played for laughs, and I find it dumb that Sam got a good grade for it, and I find it dumber that the teacher likes it. Ugh. Like I said, the teacher makes it worse by giving her the A and then giving the D to Freddy, who, yeah, made this whole wormhole thing, like, just out of the Matrix, but he shouldn't have gone he should have got a good grade over it, really. Also, back to the Cal thing, I will be a little more suspicious if my helper had a generator fuel tank that looks like it came from Area 51 or something. Like seriously. But anyway, overall, this episode is just not very pleasant. Speaking of not very pleasant, episode 41, I Date a Bad Boy. Carly goes out with a bad boy. Yeah. Alright, so this is the second special of the show. Sorry I don't have like a special slide like I Go to Japan. I just kind of forgot, so... But, my god, this episode made me lose faith in humanity. Okay, fine, it's a little exaggerated, but... Oh my god, I hate this episode. Alright. Originally, I was going to do a whole scene-by-scene breakdown, and not only am I trying to get this review done as soon as possible, really, but also, honestly, I don't think this episode deserves it, because the main thing about this episode is that the writing is very, very hackneyed and lackluster. So I'm just going to state my grievances with the first half and then my grievances with the second half instead of just, doing the whole scene breakdown. So the first half, in the most twisted logic possible, really, instead of pressing charges towards Griffin, Spencer takes him under his wing, despite him stealing his freaking motorcycle in the beginning. Like, what? That reminds me, good God, Spencer's such a moron in this first half. Instead of being relieved that Carly and Griffin didn't, have a one night stand or something, Spencer comes in the room shocked that those two end up kissing. Like Spencer, what do you expect? They're teenagers. If you leave them alone, a boy and girl who are heterosexual, then do you expect them not to? Anyway, plus this whole confrontation from Carly and Griffin somehow gaining Spencer's respect at the end is just this episode, man. Now, in regards to Griffin, he's such a boring plank of wood in this first half. If Dan Schneider thinks that being a bad boy means being as boring and generic as possible, then mission accomplished. I can buy Carly and Griffin falling in love when they are alone, but still, the entire episode really is just them being lovey-dovey and kissing, and it's just so hokey. Ugh. What about Sam and Freddy? Well, the subplot sucks too. They have this whole deal where Freddy gets scammed into a contract, but like most subplots in the show, it's really pointless and just there to fill time. Alright, so the first half sucks on its own, but then there's the second half. To be fair, the first half, the worst I can say is that there's incredibly stupid logic and it's really stupid to watch, but there are merely some funny jokes like Spencer ordering a smoothie and getting frustrated about the bagels. The second half is where the episode goes from pretty bad to downright atrocious. Yeah, I'm just dropping it now. This is a 5-4-3 bad episode. The second half of the episode has a subplot where Sam has a recurring dream, and while I guess it's more amusing than the previous subplot, it's just there to fill time, really. Anyway, Carly finds a secret about Griffin, in which he has this whole collection of stuffed animals. Honestly, I can just stop right there, really. The rest of the episode has Carly, Sam, and Freddy make fun of this guy for collecting stuffed animals until eventually Griffin breaks up with her. Okay, so, one, you think that collecting stuffed animals will give Griffin more personality overall in this thing, but nope. First half, there was no mention, not even a hint of him loving these stupid dolls. It's literally like there's two separate episodes just mashed together haphazardly. Number two. It is weird that Griffin collects stuffed animals in the first place, let's be honest, yes. But what gets me is that Carly, the girl who literally has a web show in which they probably do even wackier stuff just for fun, which at times can be questionable, it completely is against her bad boy boyfriend collecting animals. Like, ugh. Number three, the rest of this episode is just really filler. It's really just trying to take a dump on Griffin's personality and it's making that Carly trio seem very unlikable. And lastly, number four, like I've said, it's just so mean-spirited. I wouldn't say it's nasty because it is a kid's show. It's not like Griffin was depressed or anything and Carly talked bad about him, but ugh, I just can't stand it. I know this episode has me rambling more than before and they're not really, concrete with everything. But man, this episode is just one that just gets worse over time, if I'm being perfectly honest. The writing is just beyond awful. The story on both halves are just awful. It's just very bad and has a really bad tone to it. Honestly, before writing this, I would say I Meet Fred is worse than this, but I don't know. I can't really decide which one's worse. Episode 40, I reunite with Missy. Carly's old friend Missy comes by and tries to replace Sam as a friend. Once again, there's a character here that does what she does with no motivation whatsoever. Of course, because the status quo is God at this point. Missy wants to try to be outright Carly's only best friend. In the end, she gets caught, and I'm just wondering, was there really a problem with Carly having another best friend to begin with? Another small thing that bothers me at the end is Carly says something like she has only one best friend, in which she refers to Sam, but I'm like, I thought Freddie was a close friend of yours too. A minor thing, but I don't know, part of me just gets bugged by that. This Missy character is really unlikable, not compelling at all, which is what they were going for, but at the same time, Phyllis' plot is very, very predictable, honestly. In terms of jokes, there's nothing here that's really that funny, to be honest. Heck, one of the jokes completely fails because of its inaccuracy. At one point, Sam says that this old box of chocolate is older than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something, and it's not. Apparently, the box is from 1992 or 1993, and yeah, the show started in 1990. One job, guys, one job. Despite my pessimistic attitude, I think this episode is meh for one single scene. The scene where Sam comes to Freddy for some help. Sam asks Freddy for some help to get rid of Missy, but Freddy's reluctant to do so. However, in the end, Freddy gives up this boat trip for Missy so that she can go away. It's a really good setup, and it's really nice seeing their friendship evolve. However, other than that, this episode has a lot of things that bother me, but I wouldn't say it's bad per se. So, it's slightly below average. Episode 43, I Take on Dingo. The Carly crew go to this studio called Dingo Studios because they stole some of their ideas. So after the last couple of episodes being some that I don't really fancy very well, or well at all, thankfully I can say this episode is one of the best in the season. Yeah, it's really good. The setup alone is what really sells this episode for me. I think the idea of a crew parodying, or I guess outright stealing iCarly's ideas is perfect. However, what sells even more is the comedy. This episode is really, really funny. From Freddy and Spencer trying to find Charles Dingo's frozen head and freaking out looking at it, to the garbage hotel room that they go to the randomness of this some hobo named Hollywood to be there, there's a lot to love here. Also, this is from what I could tell the debut of the butter sock, which is literally a sock full of butter, which is Sam's main weapon here. And it's really funny when she just randomly hits some studio guy, and then eventually he just kind of gets used to it, so he just falls on the floor of himself. And this episode is just overall a joy to watch. Episode 44, I Must Have Locker 239. Everybody at Ridgeway High School, or junior high, I don't really know to be honest, wants to have locker 239, which is just a big locker that seems like the perfect party place, I guess. Oh boy, so let's just get the few things right about this episode first. The episode is actually decently funny, from Gibby having to be tested for his horrible guess on how many fat cakes were in this big tank, to Carly's terrible bunny, to that Carly and Spencer subplot overall. However, the main problem, once again, it just continues a shtick of Sam being in the wrong over Freddy, but ends up being on top, and that alone makes it a 5, 4, 3, 2 bad episode. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't stand the shtick every time it's used. It's not funny. It's not really funny when the wrong come up on top at the end. It's just like they did in Drake and Josh, they did it here, they even do it in freaking SpongeBob. It's just never funny. Plus, it's all useless anyway, since the locker just gets destroyed at the end of the episode, and of course Freddy gets in trouble for it. At this point, I'm about to be convinced that Freddy's the post-movie, or first post-movie Squidward of this show, or better yet, a Megward the Wizard. How appropriate that his real name is Fredward too. Whatever. Anyway, jokes aside, this episode is just annoying. I'll admit it was somewhat close to Matt because of the Carly and Spencer subplot, but I don't know. I'm just tired of the same shtick and kind of ruined this episode for me. Episode 45, I Twins. Sam's twin, Melanie Sam's twin Melanie visits satellite. Oh, I cannot read. Sam's twin Melanie visits Seattle, but Freddie doesn't think she's real. I'll cut to the chase with this episode. It's actually really good. For once, I really think this episode showcases how much of a really good actress Jeanette McCurdy really is. She does a great job making Sam and Melanie be two different people, but at the same time, not the same people. Oh my god. Two different people, but at the same time. Which I appreciate. There's also some continuity in which when Freddy kisses Melanie and he's still thinking that Sam disguised Freddy references their kiss from a couple episodes ago. I also like the subplot with Carly, Spencer, and Chuck. Carly tutors Chuck but doesn't know about him continuing to torture Spencer. I'm sorry, but that one scene where Chuck outright beats up Spencer, basically like a screaming match in I O U, is one of those only scenes from a show that consistently gives me a good belly laugh. Plus, Carly saying Spencer has to work out after finding out is really funny too. There isn't really anything bad about this episode, honestly. It's just a joy to watch, and the comedy really shines here. I guess to talk about how dumb the letter Q is with Carly and Sam at the end is a little bit stupid, but they're kind of self-aware about it, so it's whatever. Overall, I really enjoy this episode. And lastly, episode 46, I Fight Shelby Marks. Finally, the last special of this wholesome season. Anyway, Carly decides to go against this boxer named Shelby Marks in an exhibition fight. Okay, so first of all, way to reuse Victoria Justice when not only did she just finish Joy 101, but she was just getting ready for Victorious. I mean, seriously, is it really that hard to find another actor or whatever? Fortunately, that's the worst I gotta say about this episode. And thankfully, season 2 ends on a good note. To be honest, this episode was kind of close to getting a meh rating, but after some deliberation, I find it a pretty decent special. Despite the laziness of casting when it comes to Shelby, I actually do like this character. And also, I like Neville's integration to the episode. I do like the subplot in which Spencer has these side effects after being treated for a cold, and it's really funny. I also think that Freddy's awkwardness towards Shelby is cringy, but for once it's actually intentionally, so it's funny. And it kind of hits too close for me in the meta sense. Anyway, the fight itself is dumb, but again, that's the point, so I'm not really disappointed. Also, this episode has a really satisfying ending in which Carly, Sam, and Shelby beat up Neville. Also, Neville's comment that he's not scared of Carly, but he's scared of Sam cracks me up. Overall, this is a pretty good episode. I'm glad this episode ended on a good note. And that is every episode of iCarly Season 2 reviewed. Let's check the stats. Excuse me. 9 good episodes, 7 meh episodes, and 5 4 3 2 bad episodes. Okay, so I think with these stats, it couldn't be more obvious to me that iCarly Season 2 is perfectly middle of the road. So, meh. Now, hear me out. Piker Rules both gave SpongeBob Season 4 and 5 a meh rating, in which back then he said that Season 4 was completely middle of the road with not too many good episodes, not too many really bad episodes. Meanwhile, Season 5's episodes are either really good or really bad. While he kind of redacted that statement rather a couple years back, saying that Season 4 does have some really good episodes of SpongeBob, in which I do agree, I can say the exact same thing with Season 1 and Season 2. Season 1 has some good episodes, or more statistically, technically, but most of those good episodes were nothing amazing, and only a few I would say were really good. Meanwhile, in Season 2, most of the good episodes are easily some of the best in the series, and some I legit watch when they come on TV because they're actual joy to watch and feel like good kid sitcom fun that appeals to everyone. On the other hand, Season 1 had more 5 4 3 2 bad episodes, and yes, most of them were terrible, don't get me wrong, but Season 2's worst episodes are just god-awful. These are some of the worst I think I've ever seen from a kid show, really. Like, these episodes are just beyond abysmal, and outright have me irate. I Will Date Freddy is already mean-spirited enough, but at least I can just sit down, just tolerate the questionable writing. But good God, I Mean Fred and I Date a Bad Boy are just some of the nastiest episodes I've ever seen. With most bad episodes in Season 1, I can just roll my eyes. With Season 2, I genuinely just don't understand the hack writing here. Despite all my ranting, I actually do think that Season 2 is a step up from Season 1 overall. Just little things like the better camera work or better lighting, and even just better acting and just more interesting storylines really elevate this season. And like I've said, some of the best episodes in the season are some of the best in the series, so I do think 2 is a little bit better than 1, but I can't ignore that both seasons are just a meh roller coaster. And honestly, I just think that, if anything, Season 2 is a slightly inferior version of Drake and Josh Season 3, really. But anyway, that's all for today, folks. I can't promise that Season 3 will be out soon. Honestly, it's about motivation at this point, really. But yeah, I can't promise that there will be other content out there soon. So stay tuned and have a good night.